Eerie Essex. I'm Bethan Briggs-Miller.
And I'm Ailsa Clark.
Thank you for joining us on our journey into the stranger side of the county.
We will be exploring the folklore, urban legends, and supernatural encounters that form part of its rich history.
Okay, welcome to episode 12 of Eerie Essex. I can't believe we're on episode 12 already. It's flying by the year. This month, we're starting with a listener story because we've got something very special coming up in a couple of weeks where we're going to be talking to Joe Hickey Hall from the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast. Because, yep, you've guessed it, the next episode is fairies.
And there's more of them than you'd think in Essex.
It is knee-deep in fae folk.
Up to our eyeballs.
In goblins and gnomes and dryads.
Winged people and, yeah.
I think we say this with every subject. It's like we uncovered more than we discovered. It really is. Chocker. So for this episode, we spoke to one of our listeners, Wendy Buck. She was absolutely lovely. We met her in Maiden Found, which, as you must have gathered by now, is our favourite haunt. Ah, do you see what I did there? Haunt. That joke will make sense towards the end of the episode. But she had some really interesting stories about a couple of different places across the Colchester and Mersea area. And some of it even backed up some other stories. Ailsa, do you want to fill in on that?
So whilst Wendy was speaking to us, we did have to edit some things out, either due to the nature of what we were talking about or to do with privacy. And one large part we edited out because we thought it would be better to tell the story a little bit more gently was about the Mercury Theatre. So Wendy did used to work at the Mercury, and she told us a couple of things we kept in the podcast, but she did tell us one incident that happened while she was at school, where a boy unfortunately completed suicide from the roof of the Mercury building. And the description of how it happened linked into another listener's story, Katie Cern, and it was very surprising how neatly it joined those two stories together.
Yeah, very neatly, very sadly, but yeah, it made a lot of sense.
Wendy herself is a really interesting person, by the way. She used to co-host a radio show. So whilst we were giving her tips on how to speak to the microphone, we then felt very embarrassed when she said, "Oh yes, I used to do this on the radio."
Yeah, we felt a bit egg on face.
What was the character she used to play? Madame Malarkey?
Madame Malarkey, yeah. She's talking about resurrecting her again, isn't she?
Yeah, we're trying to convince Wendy to start her own podcast with Madame Malarkey. She does actually have a record that was produced of Madame Malarkey, but I don't think it exists in digital format at the moment, but we really would like her to start a podcast of Madame Malarkey.
Yeah, hashtag Madame Malarkey for Twitter. So we met her at the cafe. Oh, and before we actually got talking to Wendy, you might have seen on our Instagram feed and Twitter, we got to go into the basement of Maiden Found.
The spookiest part about that was getting down there, I found.
It was really creepy. It was down a very small
hole in the floor.
A hole in the floor, yes. And very, very tiny steps, but very steep steps. And then we were in the Roman wall. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
Quite scary. And especially when we heard the stories later on. So
yes, definitely.
Should we dive right into Wendy's tale?
I should just say before we start, this episode, of course, was recorded in Maiden Found, so that there will be background noise. There is the noise of traffic, unfortunately.
Oh, and that dog.
Yeah, we do have our own black shuck through some of the first part of the episode.
And me slurping on my frappe.
I think I got that edited out.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy the episode.
So hello and welcome to a special episode of Eerie Essex. We're here at the Maiden Found Cafe with Wendy, who's going to tell us her spooky stories.
Do you want to start with perhaps Mersea Island? That did sound a good one.
Yes, of course. Well, basically I got some training years ago in theatrical costumes down at the Mercury Theatre, a little bit of work experience, and then one day by chance reading the local paper and noticed a vacancy for the old costume shop on Mersea Island, which was called Linden's. So popped along, had an interview, and almost started work immediately. And it was a really fascinating place. They've got roughly about 10,000 costumes, roughly. So there was a large warehouse at the back, and I met two of my best friends who, even nearly 30 years later, I'm still really close to there. They were both working, and we used to have a riot in the warehouse. It's not
I can imagine that would be so much fun.
Putting on costumes, running up and down, waving swords at each other, which we did do. But it was also, there was definitely a very strong atmosphere in certain parts of the warehouse. So I suppose the most active, if that's perhaps the right word, part of the warehouse was, believe it or not, what we called the Teddy Boy rail.
Oh.
So basically it was the 20th century rail. On one side there was a big section full of all bear jackets, then 60s, 70s, and then there was also on the other side all of really beautiful original 50s, 40s, going all the way back to sort of Edwardian costumes. So a lot of what was actually in there was either original period costumes, and that's we even had a very nice Georgian dress, which I think when the actual company closed down, I think that went to a museum.
I was going to ask if they were reproductions or originals.
Anything 20th century was original, so that's Edwardian all the way through 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way up to we stopped at 70s. The Teddy Boys, now they were specifically made for stage shows. There might have been one or two originals, but they were like sets for obviously productions, because what predominantly the company did was supply theatrical costumes for amateur dramatics and also professional shows as well. And that was a very active rail. Basically, my friend Giz, her real name's Giselle.
Okay. That's a brilliant name.
We just called her Giz. I do. She'd been there longer than I had, and we were sort of messing around one day, and suddenly I'd hear a shriek from the rail where she'd gone down to try and get something. She'd come bursting out, and do be aware she was a very tall, slim, 6'4", 5" goth, sometimes wearing the boots as well. It's just made her just like screaming, coming out. It was mad, basically. And what essentially was, it was that specific section on that 20th century rail where the Teddy Boy jackets were, and we'd have all sorts. We'd have sounds, we'd have the rail shaking, which was very unusual, because if anybody knows anything about clothes, you get 2 or 3 jackets on your arm and you think, my goodness, aren't they heavy?
Yeah, I was going to say those Teddy Boy jackets, I've seen them and they are extremely thick and heavy, aren't they?
They are heavy, and these rails were long rails full of the whole 20th century, and they'd get movement, you'd get sounds, but I couldn't say they were vocal sounds. It's unusual. But the oddest thing that personally ever happened to me was round about Christmas time. I'd gone down there looking for something, and it had not been a great day work-wise. And so we'd all been having a bit of a whinge and a moan, and suddenly, completely out of the blue, in front of me was a wire coat hanger in mid-air on its own, and the blinking thing, I restrained myself from swearing, rapped me sharp on the nose, and I was like, ow, Jizzy!
Was that the same spot that she had an encounter?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very active section. And so we had that. Then just after Christmas, I was wearing a ring I'd got with the comedy and tragedy masks on, and it got lost. And can you imagine, in that entire warehouse? I was furious. I was so cross. No. I'd literally just got it. So, I didn't know where to start looking. For some mad reason, I was in the middle of the Victorian rail, and there was big wicker hampers in there full of top hats, all original. Wow. And I was sort of pulling them out because obviously, you know, your hands are everywhere. You're pulling out clothes, you're putting back clothes, you're going into boxes, coming out of boxes. No, it definitely wasn't in there. And I just stood there fuming, and I looked towards the end of the aisle, and then tinkle, tinkle, tinkle came my ring rolling at the end of the aisle. I'd been down the far end of the aisle, and at the top where the aisle finished, and there was like the big walkway between the two sections of the warehouse. Yeah. Tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. It just came rolling and rolling along the walkway, and then it stopped right in front of my rail. I said, I've had enough of this. Help. So I just picked up and put it on, and
what did it feel like when you picked it up?
It was cold. Yeah. I didn't get any. I was more angry that I'd lost it, to be quite honest, than the fact that it had just rolled up the aisle in between the two sections and stopped in front of me.
It's almost like something's playing with you.
It was quite. I mean, the wrapping on the nose with the coat hanger, and as I said, honestly, I was just in that aisle looking for something, and then the coat hanger was just in front of me in midair.
I mean, I've seen things like, I've seen a leaf hang in midair because it was attached to a coat hanger that would have been way too heavy for that to have been like a spider web or anything like that.
No, I mean, I've seen a little pebble suspended by a bit of spider's web as well, actually.
But then to wrap you on the nose as well.
Yeah, wrap you on the nose up. Yeah, that didn't go down terribly well.
So that was after a day, you said, where you were all feeling quite stressed.
Yes.
How were you feeling the day that your ring went missing?
Oh, I was furious. Oh. Yeah, literally, it just, I just got it that Christmas, and it come off again. But basically, if I explain, the warehouse was divided into an L shape, so big oblong, and a walkway in the centre. One side, all the costumes. The other side, more costumes. Then, as I said, it was an L, and it went round the corner. And when you got round the corner, that was a further, quite active area. That's where all the military costumes were.
And were those real or reproduction ones?
Most of them were real, and they're predominantly Second World War, but there was some First World War, and they'd ones that obviously that had been donated, because originally Lyndon's costumes was in Southend, and this little old lady had it for years, years, and basically people would have donated things to her. I mean, people came into the shop and donated things to us as well. So we had, as I said, quite a selection of original uniforms, First World War, predominantly Second World War, but also odds and bods of other things, like St John's ambulance uniforms, that they were quite old, and other things, and a huge selection of real army boots and things like that. And then we had some weaponry as well.
Wow.
Yeah, never fire a crossbow, that's all I can say. We were messing around once with swords and things, because we were young, and...
We've all been there, crossbows.
Crossbows, yeah, Roman swords. And I said to Juice, I said, oh, look, do you think it actually works? So I put a pencil in it, and yes, it does, it works.
Oh my God.
No wonder they use them in Fear the Walking Dead, because they are quite deadly, even with a pencil. And that was not, weirdly enough, you'd think that'd be really active, but not.
Yeah.
Teddy Boy was the most active rail, but you definitely got there was more of a presence with the uniforms. Now, whether that's because they're uniforms and they command that sort of atmosphere, I want to say.
You expect it, don't you?
Yeah, you do sort of expect it, but there were definitely something there. Personally, I never experienced anything. I mean, apart from you definitely, I suppose, weirdly enough, I did, because it was quite private in that section. You did that when you tried on costumes. You did tend to go to that section to strip off, for want of better words, and put all the garb on. But you definitely got a sensation you were being watched when you were in that area. But it wasn't there wasn't any sort of malice with it.
No.
But it was definitely there. But no, the most active rail was definitely that 20th century rail. So, and basically what happened is at the end of the day, the company went on for several years. I left and I managed to get another job with a costume company, and I did some freelance stuff obviously for the local Mercury Theatre as well. The idea was to sell it all off, I think, individually. So when that happened, I did nip down, and that was a really hilarious experience. It was almost as if the costumes didn't want me to come back, because I was on the bus, I got on the Strood, and it was high tide, and the water actually came inside the bus. And I had to lift my feet off of the floor.
Why did the bus try and go across?
They do.
They do. Yeah.
I know I've done the Roman centurion story for the Strood, and I did warn people not to do that, but I do know buses will attempt it.
Yeah, I mean, and we are going back to the 1980s, so, you know.
No health and safety.
No health and safety, what, you know. So basically, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get there. But I did get there, and I did buy some items from them. I wanted some of the beaded dresses, but they were too expensive. So I got a very nice 1930s silk velvet evening bag with a silver marquisite clasp. That's lovely. And another one, little, not in brilliant condition, but another one. And what happened was, people came down, they bought items, but not a lot. So they actually sold the whole collection as is. And it was opened up in Colchester, just off of Drury Road, I think. And the costume company was called Magpies.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, so I worked for them for a little while. And I didn't get the same sense from the collection, although it had actually increased a little bit. I think there was more. Apart from, there is still this very strange atmosphere with the uniforms. Again, is that something it commands? Because for part of my work, I look at the agency of objects, and you know, and uniforms do command that sort of agency. I'm thinking, I don't know. It was definitely there, and again, once again, it was put like round a corner, so you're turning that corner.
It's like that people
separate.
Subconsciously sort of putting them away from the main area.
Yeah.
So before you had these experiences on Mersea, had you had any experiences like this before? Like, had you ever sort of felt like you'd been around the paranormal?
I'm just trying to think.
Or was this like the experience that kind of made you go?
That was the most. It's the most initially significant one, and of course I was 17, 18 at the time. Anything further back, I suppose, there was a very odd Christmas once. We stayed overnight at my grandparents' house on Christmas Eve, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and the bedroom lights were on, and the bedroom had been decorated for Christmas, and there was tinsel around the 30s dressing table, and the vanity set that had those old-fashioned glass vanity sets that have candlesticks and glass trays. There were candles in it, it was lit, and then I closed my eyes again, and it had gone, and the room was in back. So I suppose I'd have probably been quite young then, 8.
Right.
But I was awake because closed my eyes again, shook my head, and opened them, and it had all returned.
Oh.
So I did this several times. I repeated this several times, and in the end, it's quite pragmatic. I just thought, I can't be bothered with this anymore. And I went back to sleep. Christmas tomorrow. Hooray.
So that was almost like a time warp situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were slipping in and out.
It did feel a bit odd, actually. I never actually considered it as that sort of incident, but now that you say it, I could definitely see that. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's 70s. You're going back.
We do love the 70s because absolutely everything happened in the 70s.
Happened in the 70s. It's guaranteed to be the 70s for a lot of things.
Well, blame the 60s, folks.
So, town shops.
Oh, well, I suppose, although I've sort of done a few bits and bobs at the Mercury Theatre and worked for some costume people.
Did you ever experience anything at the Mercury Theatre? Because we had someone write in.
Yes, Katie Cern.
She had loads. She knew loads that happened there.
Well, I do know a few things. I tell you what, for some reason, I don't know. I mean, theatre world is like weird anyway, but stuff would never go right in theatre. You know, the washing machines were constantly breaking down. And if you're in the wardrobe, that's quite serious. Irons would always be super hot. You couldn't get the blooming temperatures turned down. And the thing is, even though this is years ago, you'd have to have they'd have to be pat tested even then. So why we could never get anything electrical to work properly, I honestly do not know, but that actually caused quite serious problem. You'd put the washing on at night and hope to be able to get it finished before you leave, and you'd end up being there till midnight. I mean, you do long nights, but you'd end up being there until almost midnight because the washing machine just would not stop going.
That's strange, isn't it? It's not like electrical surge.
Yeah, it was. There was definitely an odd atmosphere there, but I've never seen anything.
I think that's theatres for you in general. I mean, there's so much emotion and like high tension going on at a theatre.
And stress, because as you say, everything has to go right.
Yeah.
There's no room for error, really, is there?
Must be all right on the night.
Yeah.
But so that's basically the main thing that I noticed at the theatre. They had some lovely costumes there, but over the years that's all been split up, which is a bit of a shame.
So you also had were we talking about the shops in town?
Oh, yes.
They were going to go on to
Sorry, that was me, like, segue in there.
Bethan's really good at a segue.
I am.
Well, basically, I've worked in the shops in Colchester on and off for several decades, and I used to work in here when it was the Cusp for about a year until Christmas. And upstairs where we are now was where the tarot reader used to be.
Oh, Francis
Lovely
was just
chap.
telling us about that
Francis
as well.
was just telling us about that, yeah.
Yeah, really nice chap. Mark, very good. That was his profession. That was all he did. He made a reasonable living from that. Very happy. And I didn't notice anything, but Mark said there was something. And then after the Cusp had moved, it became a couple of other shops, and then there was like a new age shop here, and upstairs there was a lot of clothes, and there was a lovely lady who she's not local, I believe she comes from Chelmsford. She said they'd had some things go on up here, and she said she thought there was some sort of portal. I'm not quite sure what to, but they were here only briefly, which was a shame. But all of these shops along Sir Isaac's Walk, Eld Lane, Shortwire Street, they're all built on the Roman wall, and part of them are usually in it as well. So there's lots of cellars, and I have been into the cellar here.
So did we.
Yeah, we just had a little trip down.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what it was like. Has it still got a fireplace? Yeah, because there was a fireplace down
Unfortunately,
there.
it's mostly just chairs. I've got photos of.
Yeah, I mean, they are surprisingly,
They're huge. I was surprised at how big it was.
Yes.
And they must be part of the original wall and probably made from the wall.
They are. They are part of, one side will definitely be part of the Roman wall. Many people in Colchester will remember the old shop, Traders in Sir Isaac's Walk, which was once 2 floors. So upstairs was giftware, and downstairs they had a lovely cafe, restaurant, and also they sold kitchenware. I think they were the first people in Colchester to sell Le Creuset. And
very posh.
Yeah, it was very trendy. I mean, 70s. You'd have died and gone to heaven in there. It was really something. But they also, for a while, the cafe was actually in an enormous Roman cellar. I actually went in it when I was little. I had some sort of hot barley water, which, quite frank, was disgusting. And that was amazing. And eventually, though, when they built the new precinct where the former Debenhams is, they had to stop because all the building work cracked the ceiling and water started to come in. That has been sorted out now, and I don't think it leaks, but that was the unfortunate result at the time. But as you go further along, obviously there's more cellars. This one here, if you go further down to where I am now at Traders to the East, there's another big cellar there. It's actually got a small side room as well.
Wow.
And we've had a few sort of odd bod things go on there, but to be quite honest, I'm so busy refilling. Yeah, we've had sort of, because we have CCTV, had orbs and bits and pieces. nothing for like months, and then suddenly one day, lots of bits and bobs sort of moving. And one of my very dear friends was absolutely insistent that this little figure kept moving. Do you remember in the British Museum where a little Egyptian figure kept moving round?
Yes.
Well, we had that, but not an Egyptian figure. We had those little carved stone angels.
Oh, yes.
And it used to turn round. I mean, but again, with the footfall of traffic and minute movements, plus our floor is not even because the building itself is very old, like this building.
Heavy lorries going past as well on some bottles.
Yeah, there's a lot of movement, but she was really insistent that kept moving. I did have a toy cat leap off a shelf at me once. But again, people move stuff, it could have fallen. But no, the most fascinating thing I think about that comes to mind is I used to know somebody who had a shop in Red Line Walk. Mm-hmm. And there's stories about a tunnel from Colchester Castle all the way through to Red Lion Walk, and there's supposed to be another tunnel that goes to the town hall as well. But the one in Red Lion Walk, I did actually see the door to her cellar, and I went down the cellar, and at the bottom, her cellar wasn't particularly big, but in the far corner there was another not a door, but there was a doorway, and then there was like an iron prison,
like a gate,
with a barred gate. That's the word I'm looking for. There was a barred gate, and you could clearly see there was brickwork and like tunnel-ish sort of thing that went on further. But yeah, I didn't have a chance to really sort of investigate. That's one of the stories, and actually I'm sure there's quite a few more tunnels around the town.
Waterstones has an entrance to one.
Kirsty showed me a picture of it. My sister-in-law used to work in the Waterstones, and she did show me a picture of the cellar that does have a little door at the end of it, so it does go on.
Yes. I mean, you asked on one of the history Facebook groups, didn't you? Or was it? So one of us asked about tunnels, and it really split. Like people got.
That was you that asked about it.
People
of course,
got quite
it was
passionate about it. Like either yes, there are, or don't be silly. There was no one in between. It was either you believed in the tunnels or you didn't believe in the tunnels.
Yes.
But you saw the tunnel.
Yes.
You heard it here, folks.
Red Line Walk. Yes.
Is the shop still there?
Yes, it is. Yes, I mean there's been a lot of alterations over the years. I'm trying to think if it's the vape shop or the one next door. It's definitely quite central to the walk, and of course there's that cake shop as well, and I'm pretty sure they've got a cellar in that cake shop. But no, that was, gosh, I must have seen that about probably 20 years ago, I suppose, round about 20.
When we came in, we asked Frances, who owns Made and Found, about what's going on here. And she said as well about the tower readers and people who used to be up there. And there was somebody once who saw a dark figure go through. She said,
I think it was in the room just next to us.
Yeah, through there as you come up the stairs. And this whole area, this side of the wall, would have been in the medieval times the red light district of Colchester.
Oh, really?
And people had picked up that perhaps this was a brothel, and it was quite distressing. She said.
She said that it was women in distress, possibly that somebody was picking up here. But we do have a story about the Chinese restaurant just down there.
Yes.
Who has a very cheeky ghost that they call his Nibs.
His Nibs. He likes to materialise in the toilet.
Oh, God.
Yes, in the ladies' toilet specifically. And it's believed he was a customer of the red light district who might have met his end down there.
Yes. There was, it used to be a vodka bar, but it's that building just outside the window there, the beauty parlour. And they've got a lady that haunts the first floor, and you can only see the top half of her. Her legs are beneath the floor.
Ah, yes.
But no one's ever seen her legs underneath.
Yeah.
But
well, I did have a friend who worked there, and he said that the atmosphere up there was really unpleasant. You couldn't really pin it down. But I do know in the 50s and 60s that this building that we're in today was a really trendy cafe, Teddy Boys Cafe. But I say trendy, it's perhaps the wrong word. They had the police were always coming to the building because there was constant trouble, you know, all sorts of odd things going on that people, you know, that you couldn't explain. And I suppose in those days you probably would have called the police.
Well, yeah, I mean, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters haven't come out yet.
No. And it actually had even in those decades, it did have a bit of a reputation
for activity.
Yeah. And that was
do you remember the name of what it used to be?
No, I don't.
Have a look.
I want to say the Pink Toothbrush, but that's an old dive in Southend, so that's not. Honestly, I can't remember. But we had when I was working here, we had an old customer come in, and he was telling us about it. No, he didn't mention the name. Can't remember.
Oh, that's fascinating, Wendy. Thank you so much.
That's all right.
And I'm so glad
brilliant.
you confirmed the presence of tunnels.
Definitely.
You've seen them.
I'm never going to be able to get her to stop talking about them now.
All I go on about is tunnels.
One of the things that I should have mentioned earlier was I did a little bit of amateur dramatics before I became professional, and I worked with the Priory Players, and they did a couple of performances in Trinity Gardens, which is where the Tiptree Tea Rooms is now, and it's a really beautiful garden, but when we were performing there, it was a little bit more overgrown, not quite as sort of well kept, and we had the changing rooms upstairs in what at that time was, of course, the Clock Museum.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. And every night, without fail, the security guard or the guardian of the house or whoever it was would at the end of the performance, would come down and say, somebody stop going upstairs and opening all the windows. And of course, none of us did.
Oh, yes. Because when it was the Clock Museum, that upstairs floor wasn't usable.
Oh.
It had to be... reinforced when they opened the Timpley's Cafe.
Yeah. So basically, nobody did. I mean, again, this is going back quite a few years. What happened was, upstairs there was a section you were allowed to use, and that was the changing room. And then there was a further section. It's almost like a third floor, but it wasn't a third floor. It's sort of, there were quite a few levels up there, but not different floors, if that makes sense. And yeah, every night without fail, the rooms would, the windows in those rooms would be shut when we arrived. When we left, and nobody would go into those rooms. And in fact, on a couple of occasions, I actually had to stay upstairs on my own to make sure that nobody came up, or none of the other cast members sort of were doing anything daft, like opening the windows, and nobody did. So I was up there just maintaining
Order.
Costumes, order, and the chap from the museum would come and say, well, the windows are open again. I said, well, I can assure you nobody has been upstairs.
How odd.
And that went on all week that we were obviously there. And a couple of years ago, a friend and I were visiting, and this was before the refurbishment, so the museum was still there. And but what they'd done is, at the back of those gardens, there used to be a large, really old-fashioned green shed where all the maintenance equipment was kept. That had gone, and James, we were just taking photographs, James took some photos, and it's completely full of orbs, absolutely everywhere.
Wow, really?
Yeah, in daylight, obviously, because you can't get in there at night.
Yeah, because you mostly pick them up like with a light, like a flash, don't you?
But no, that's really interesting. He must have them on a PC somewhere. I'll have to ask him if he's got those.
Oh, if you've got them, can we? Oh yes, please send
I
us
shall. I'll ask him. He is rather busy. But,
I mean, I have a story of strangeness about the Timpley's museum as well, because obviously I work for the museum service, so it was still open when I was working there. And they had a significant problem with the Clock Museum. The problem was that somebody kept on stealing the L out of clock. And it happened so often, they painted the L back on with security paint, and guess what somebody did? They spent all night scraping that security paint off, so it would remain...
That's dedication.
it would remain without its L.
Oh, that's
So dedicated
strange.
somebody was to making sure it was not a clock museum.
Imagine if you came especially to see a museum like that and then you found out it was just full of clocks. The disappointment. I think they had a couple of paranormal groups going in there, and they picked up orbs with the naked eye, like
Wow.
blue orbs.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people said they felt sick when they went in there. Like that sort of, when you go down quickly on a car,
Oh,
it's that
yes.
stomach.
It did used to have a bit of a damp problem as well, as I remember when I
I think it was
when I
slightly
working.
off
Yeah.
level as well, which can make you feel a bit.
Well, we
odd,
used to
can't
have it at first sight, didn't we? When we'd have sort of older people and they would get very disorientated about the floor.
Oh yeah, because the floor just rises ever so slightly and the walls are all leaning.
Yeah, definitely the floors upstairs weren't level. It was really quite raked, I think is the term.
Interesting.
So that was really, I was so fascinated with Wendy. I could have spoken to her for hours, which we did nearly.
We spent quite a long time speaking to Wendy.
We segued from the paranormal to not everyday things and back again. So bless you, you must have edited quite a bit out.
Took several hours. But there was so much I wanted to keep in there because it was all brilliant. So even when it wasn't paranormal based, it was just a slice of social history of Colchester.
That's it. I mean, I know we've said it in the last couple of episodes, but if people have got stories, they don't necessarily have to be about Essex. If you're a listener and you enjoy listening to our stories and you've got something to share it. It's so lovely.
If it is about Essex, we'll definitely be interested.
We'll be definitely interested. And let's be honest, Finland, because now we're in a ratings war with Peter Laws.
Oh, and since we recorded this episode, Colchester has become a city.
It has.
So now city dwellers.
We are city dwellers.
Nothing's changed.
No, nothing's changed. Well, you're still a city dweller on outskirts, but my village might become a town. I'm scared. Oh, and I suppose we can say now, because by the time the podcast airs, we should be able to release our bit of news.
Yes. Do you want to do it?
I do. Earlier this year, Ailsa and I applied for Arts and Cultural Fund to try and get some better equipment to make our recordings more professional and reach a wider audience. We want to take Eerie Essex on the road and go out to the communities, different villages, towns, cities, and collect your stories, actually, in situ. And we were really lucky. We were awarded quite a nice
surprising sum. My eyebrows shot straight off my forehead.
And my jaw went straight to the floor. So we're very, very excited, and we're very, very, we can't thank you enough, Explore Essex. You've literally opened so many doors for us now, and we can do so much with this money.
And we should thank the Essex Records Office, who gave us a letter of recommendation as well.
Yes, thank you. And we look forward to working with you on this because we want to come with you. We want to come and record at you. So we'll be in touch about that. So yeah, watch this space. We'll, as we plan the project out now, and we'll be releasing updates on where we plan to be, where we're heading, and if anyone's got any suggestions, let us know.
Right. Shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, it's been a good episode, and it's only a week now until we're recording again. We're getting busy.
My brain's gone.
Yeah, we're both very tired, and we're both going to London tomorrow to see Danny Robbins' play 222. 222?
I think it's 222.
We're going to see 222, and we're very excited because we're going with the Uncanny Gang, and they're a good laugh. And it's goodbye from Ailsa.
And it's goodbye from Bethan.
Bye.
Goodbye.